I'm JP Tuesday.
And I'm Kiki Cannon. As lifelong Disney fans, the work of countless talented Disney creatives have shaped our lives.
Now, as the Disney catalog expands, we're taking a journey through film and television to discover if that spark that shaped us as children lives on in adulthood.
Does your favorite Disney media still cast that same spell? Join us as we find out. We are Rewatching the Magic.
Hi, Kiki.
We're okay. We're okay. We're okay.
Yes. Summer is starting. The kids are out of school, but we're going back to school. The semester has started. We're heading towards Monsters University. So, Kiki, how do you like going back to university?
You know, I've been there a lot on both sides of things, and it's more fun to watch a movie about it. Let's just say that.
So, yeah, Monsters University, we have talked about the original Monsters Incorporated a long time ago. Go back to that episode if you want to hear our thoughts about that movie. But at the end of that episode, I talked about how this was not the original plan. When Disney and Pixar were having their falling out, Michael Eisner created Circle 7 Studios and put them in charge of doing sequels to the Pixar movies that Disney owned the rights to. One of those movies would be a Monsters, Inc. sequel that would have shown the aftermath of the first movie. I'm not going to go through all of it. There are YouTube videos out there that go through the entire script if you want to know what the original Circle 7 concept of Monsters, Inc. 2 is going to be. But when Disney did bring in Pixar, when Disney bought Pixar with Iger, they wanted to go in a different direction, a completely different direction of a Monsters, Inc. sequel, with it not being a sequel at all, but being a prequel, showing how Mike and Sully met, how they became friends, and how they eventually joined Monsters Incorporated. This is a weird era for Pixar, in my opinion, because this was Pixar wanting to be experimental, wanting to do different kinds of movies, but also, hey, Disney now owns us, and they want sequels to these movies. We have an idea for a movie, but we're not sure if Disney's going to let us do it, so let's just tack it on to this well-known IP and sell it that way. Pixar wants to make a spy movie, but Disney wants a sequel to Cars. Let's put those two together. Pixar wants to make a college movie, but they want a sequel to Monsters Incorporated. Let's put them together. This is Disney's Animal House. This is it. This is Disney's Animal House. Am I wrong?
Probably not, but I have only seen one of those two movies. I'm kind of glad I went into this movie not knowing what it was going to be about, because this was a first watch for me. Like we said before, I kind of missed the entire Monsters, Inc. Monsters universe, from Pixar thing. So this was another first watch for me. And I'm glad I kind of went into it not really knowing what it was going to be about, because I absolutely hate that, it's a university and that means we've got to join a frat, and I would have just been so the fact that it kind of came up sort of organically in the movie was kind of better for me. I still hate that plot point with a raging passion, and we'll get into that. But yeah.
I do have a story about this movie of how I saw the movie, because good friend of the show, we've had him on before, Luke Ski, at around the time of a little bit before the movie, was doing a Kickstarter for one of his albums, and I had donated to the Kickstarter, and he said if they had reached a certain amount, that he would do Luke Ski Con, a full convention of all of the people that donated to the Kickstarter coming to Chicago for a Luke Ski convention, and he was going to bring a bunch of his artists from the Funny Music Project, and it was going to be this whole weekend of Luke and his funny music friends doing concerts and hanging out, and we would do a bunch of stuff. And one of the things was going to see this movie. So you had a bunch of us going to the theater to see this movie because Luke was really excited about this movie because he's a big fan of Billy Crystal. And the fact that this was basically the Mike Wazowski movie, this was going to be Billy Crystal at his most Billy Crystal in an animated film. Hell yeah, he was going to be watching this movie. So my first experience of seeing this movie was with a bunch of friends and colleagues within the Funny Music Project community. And yeah, I got to see this movie with Luke and all of them. That's why I'm kind of shocked that you were not there for this.
Yeah, it was just one of those things of I think I had donated to that Kickstarter at the time, but I couldn't afford the trip. So, but I mean, I do remember when that happened, and I do remember you all going and seeing it together and seeing the pictures on Facebook and giving them all little heart emojis.
Which is very funny because one of the Funny Music Project people, another friend of ours, Carrie Dalby, she has red hair and she wears pink. And there's a character in this movie with red hair that wears pink and is named Carrie. That was not lost on us in the theater.
Yeah.
So, I mentioned Billy Crystal, but yeah, Billy Crystal, John Goodman are both back as Mike and Sully, the younger versions of them.
Yeah, Steve Buscemi's back. Yay!
Yep, as Randall, or Randy, as he is in his younger days. And we get a bunch of new characters in this movie, like
Helen Mirren as I guess we can call her the villain.
I mean, it's a college movie. The dean usually is the villain.
Yeah, she's the dean, and that's usually a villain role. And then you get Nathan Fillion as kind of the secondary villain, which is the, big frat bro of the big frat, which is usually another one of the villains in these sorts of movies.
That definitely adds to the vengeance of the dorks aspect of the movie.
Yeah. But, you get Alfred Molina in here as their scaring professor. And we were talking about this a lot off mic. Aubrey Plaza shows up as the girl who organizes the scare games.
The Greek council president, who is a goth girl. And I asked, and I kind of text you afterward, like, how many goth characters has Aubrey Plaza played?
And I responded that if you count Grumpy Cat as a goth character, then the answer is all of them. All of her characters she has ever played. That same type. But
yeah.
I was gonna say, even when you try to make Aubrey Plaza a weird looking monster, she's still kind of hot. She is my Jennifer Tilly monster replacement in this movie, I will say.
I'm surprised they didn't do that. They didn't have a meet in the movie. Maybe, maybe that's
in the
later.
Background,
like she's a student.
I would never go out with you. I'm dating, Nathan Fillion character. Yeah. That would have been funny.
Like that.
But I mean, she sort of does pop up at the end of the movie if you look really carefully.
Well, she works at Monsters Inc. So when they finally get their jobs.
I mean, it's in that closing montage, but when they're doing it in his locker and all, but you can see when she pops up in the story of his life because bits from her start showing up in the locker.
So they've already started dating by the time we get to that montage.
Yeah, there are, they start dating during the montage because there are points where it's just stuff about him and Sully, and then all of a sudden, she pops in about, remember our date tonight, honey boo, or whatever, it's there's little notes from her and stuff inside of his locker, and little napkins from their dates or whatever. I forget what all they put in there, but I did notice it when I was watching it. I was like, oh, that's when they started dating. Okay, cute. I'm glad that that's in there, but I would have preferred if she'd have been if they'd actually had Jennifer Tilly in here.
Yeah.
I love that Sean Hayes and Dave Foley get to be like the kind of weirdo two-headed brother.
Yeah. Terry and Terry.
Yeah,
Terry
Terry and
with an I
Terry.
and Terry with a Y.
And like one is a dancer and one is a magician. You get Charlie Day in here as that monster that they call him Art in here, but I kept thinking of him as the Muppet monster because there's a famous Muppet bit that just has, and I forget what they're called in the Muppets, but there's like a whole like type of puppet that Jim Henson used to use that looks exactly like that monster.
Oh, the Java worms.
Yeah, that's what they're called. Thank you. Yeah, because I could hear Java in my head and I couldn't think about it. But yeah, and they do that whole bit to Java in there. And that's all I was thinking of. The whole time I was watching the movie, every time he would come on screen, I would start to hear Java in my head. Yeah. Bobby Moynihan shows up as one of the evil prep brothers. He's like Nathan Fillion's little second in command. Oh my goodness, so many people in here. Julia Sweeney is the mom, which I love because she's like just the quintessential Midwestern mom, you know? Like,
Yeah.
I really expected her to come out and be like, I've made you all a hot dish. Like, you know, like, but
We do get a few more returning characters, and I mean, we can talk about them because, you know, John Ratzenberger as the Yeti, Mr. Snowman,
yeah.
because it's a Pixar movie. You need John Ratzenberger in it. So he comes back reprising his role as the Yeti. And Rob Peterson as Roz in a very brief cameo at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Apparently, Kelsey Grammer was supposed to be in the movie. He was going to take over the role of the young Mr. Waternoose when they first get hired. His part, that scene got cut from the end of the movie.
Yeah, I have a feeling that they were gonna do like a longer like montage, and instead they just did like that little like locker clip show at the end,
Well, at that point, the movie's already pushing 2 hours.
which is very, very long for a Pixar movie. Yeah, so I can see why they did it, but I have a feeling that that's probably where he would have shown up.
Yeah.
One of the things that really got me was if you pause the screen for the list of people that are in the additional voices section, it reads like a who's who of voice acting. It's like just a few in there that I noticed. Like Carlos Alazraqui is in there. Roger Bumpus is in there. Bill Farmer is in there. I mean, these are all people we've talked about before. I saw April Winchell in there. I'm just scanning through the list now. I've got it screen grabbed. Yeah, Tara Strong, who we've talked about a ton, but then a few that surprised me, like John Kassir, which is great because you got to have your John Kassir in a monsters movie, right? He's
Yep.
the original. Well, I think maybe the one and only Crypt Keeper, but you got your Jason Marsden in there. We talked about him before.
Mm-hmm.
And Jess Harnell, who we've talked about a few times, but also a few things like Matt Mercer.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Matt Mercer, what are you doing here? Lovely to see you. The one that really got me, though, and I had to Google it to be like, this cannot be the same guy, but it is. And apparently he does voiceover work, which, as did his predecessor, Donovan Patton. Do you recognize that name?
No.
He is Joe from Blue's Clues. He's the second host of Blue's Clues. And when I saw
Wow.
the name, I was like, there is no way that's the same guy. That's got to be a different actor. But no, it's him. And apparently, just like Steve Burns before him, he does a lot of voice work. So good for him. I wonder if the third guy, whose name I'm forgetting, does a lot of voice work too. That'd be great if they could just keep getting people who do voice work to do the host of Blue's Clues.
Also, I mean, we get a lot of world building in this one, especially during the end credits, and I'll throw it out now, because according, just from the first movie, you think Monsters Inc. is the only provider of Scream energy, and they're not, because at the end we see the trading cards and we see that there are other companies in the monster world that provide Scream energy, such as Scream Industries and Fear Co.
Yeah, I liked that there were other places and that there was maybe like a bit of competition for providing this world with Scream energy. I also liked that there was more than one, like Monsters University is not the only one. There was like Scare Tech as well.
Yeah, there are so many other monster training colleges out there. And we hear that right at the beginning. I went to Monsters University. You got to go to this school if you want to be a real scarer. Yeah, I did like that bit of world building. That it just shows that there's more to what we see in these films. We have not, it's been a few years, but, we going to be real, have not seen Monsters at Work. Not really, yeah.
Yeah, it's not really been our the interesting thing about this one was that they had a little short that takes place just after this called Party Central. That was put out in theatrical release with Muppets Most Wanted. And the reason that's kind of interesting is just today, as we're recording this, it's been announced that Disney Plus is going to upload the longer cut of Muppets Most Wanted up on
the
Disney
director's
Plus.
cut. I saw that. It's only been available on Blu-ray for right now.
Yeah.
And also, as of this recording, Rock and Roller Coaster is officially Muppet Mayhem.
Yeah. They've finally opened the doors on that. Not Monsters related, but I just, when I had forgotten, I had remembered about the short, but I had forgotten like which movie that it got put out with. And so I probably have seen that short because I'm pretty sure I've seen every Muppet movie, once I had a choice of going to the theater in theaters. So I do remember going to see Muppets Most Wanted in theater. So I probably did see that short and just probably didn't pay attention to it because I'm like, oh, I don't know any of these characters.
But yeah, let's kind of get into the movie. As this is a prequel, we get, this is the Mike Wazowski movie. As I said, this is Mike Wazowski as starting with him as a child wanting to be a scarer, and it's like, you're too little, you're not scary enough, you're not going to be a quote real monster, and he makes it his life's mission to prove everyone wrong, that he can be a scarer, that he can be a quote real monster. That entire opening scene of yeah, baby Mike is adorable. Little kid Mike Wazowski is adorable in this movie.
Yeah, and the little kid that voices him. I mean, I don't know anything about that kid actor and if he kept on acting, but it was
Noah Johnson as little Mike in that opening scene.
Yeah, but the acting, sometimes when they get the little kid voice actors, it doesn't come out the greatest. But this one sounded nice and natural and pretty good.
Gonna be a scarer.
Yeah.
It's so cute.
And him trying to keep his energy up as everybody was pairing up on the field trip with other classmates, and he's trying to like talk himself, oh, you're going with Claire? No, she's a good egg. Oh, okay, how about you? No, but you're my cousin. Like that whole thing, and I was like, oh, I've been there, little kid. Hang on, little Mike. It gets better. You'll have friends. You'll do a crappy podcast one day too. In the Monsters University, Mike and Sully are exactly the kind of guys to have a podcast.
I don't want to think Sully being a podcast bro.
I mean, they made Sully a frat bro in this one, which I was not happy with. Because you called this the Mike Wazowski movie, which it totally is. But the thing is that you like Sully so much as a character in the first movie, and then it's like this movie he comes in and immediately it's all the stuff that is like the douchiest thing possible. It's like he is the he's the frat bro, he's kind of the jock kid,
Also a Nepo baby.
also a Nepo baby. And so like he just comes in and you're like, oh, it's Douchey McDoucherton. And he's gonna like join Douche House, you know?
I mean, I do like that they start out as rivals and then they grow into a friendship by the end of the movie. They become the characters that we see at the beginning of the first movie.
And the thing is that I kind of wish it would have grown a little bit organically, because it does seem like they're at each other's throats until the point in the movie where they both discover that they had collected Scarer trading cards as kids. And then it's like, oh, wow, I don't hate you as much now, you know?
Common ground.
Yeah, but it seemed like they had way more in common by that point in the movie for that to be like wait a minute, now we're in sync, you know, it's like, so I don't know. I think they spent a bunch of the movie trying to figure out like, okay, how are they going to be rivals? And then they're like, oh wait, we forgot to write in the how are they going to be friends, and just kind of threw that in.
I mean, I kind of like how it's set up because we learn in the movie that Sully comes from a long line of scarers, the Sullivan family. So, and he's also a natural scarer in the way a college athlete would be a natural athlete. He's never had to practice. He's never had to study. He's just been naturally good at everything. Meanwhile, Mike had to work for everything. He's not a naturally gifted scarer. He's not a well-aptituded student. He studies every day. You know, he's right at the beginning of the movie when he's settled in, you know, Randall wants to go to hang out and go to parties. And what's Mike doing? He's studying. He's studying everything there is to study about being a scarer because he wants to know everything there is to know, because he wants to become the greatest scarer there ever was. And like I said, Sully never had to do that. He never had to study. He never had to work for it, because either it was given to him because he came from a well-known family, or he was just naturally gifted in talent. And I love that being the dynamic for the first part of this movie.
Yeah, Sully is that guy in the football movie who's like an absolute unit and can just like stop a linebacker rush by just standing there. But then you're like, okay, now you got to move the ball and you got to learn fundamentals, you know? And he's like, oh, yeah, no, I just stand there and let big dudes run into me and I don't fall over.
And
like,
Mike
that's
is
where I'm
Rudy.
good. Yeah. It's
And
like,
Mike is Rudy. Mike is really Rudy in this movie.
Mike is definitely the Rudy of this movie. But the thing is, I will always say, just since we're on this, I will always say that Rudy is the best football movie ever made, because I come from like a football town. We've talked about this before. And when Rudy came out, they took the entire lineup of the local university football team, and the university in my town is kind of known for football. So they took the entire football team at the time to go see Rudy in the theater. And my dad happened to be in the theater at the time. And he said that he has rarely experienced anything funnier than like a whole bunch of college football guys trying to hide the fact that they are weeping openly at a football movie. It's like the whole Rudy chant at the end. He was like, every one of those guys was just a wreck. And they're desperately trying to hide it. To be like, no, man, no, I'm tough. Football guy. But no shame if you cry to Rudy. Everybody cries to Rudy. The thing about it though is that there are certain movie tropes and plot structures like the sports films and stuff. We've talked about they all have the same beats, but it's kind of how well you do them.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of those plot structures that it's just, to me, it never appeals to me, no matter how well you do them.
This is a college movie. This is every college movie you've ever seen. All of the tropes, they're here.
I mean, there's like college movies that are like this, and then there's college movies that are like, Dead Poet Society. I like the college movies that are like Dead Poet Society, where it's like you're at a school and or like Good Will Hunting or something. Like it takes place at a college, but it's not a college movie in that sense that you're talking about,
Well, those are dramas, and this was intended to be a college comedy. This is, Animal House. This is Van Wilder. This is The Waterboy.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think I saw The Waterboy once, but other than that, you're naming a bunch of movies I've never seen because I would watch the trailers and go like, that looks like absolutely nothing I would ever want to watch. So if you had tried to sell me this movie on like, it's gonna be that kind of college movie trope, but done for Pixar. Like, I love Futurama. There's a Futurama episode where they do this plot line, and I love all the characters in it, and there's even really good callback lines. I love it, like Fry screaming, banana, banana, banana. Like, there's some really funny moments in that. Most of the time, I will skip that episode on a rewatch just because of how much I cannot stand this kind of plot. So I will admit that does taint my view of this movie somewhat. But it starts off really good. It starts off like not being that type of movie at all. It's really just Mike has a dream, and now what's he have to do to get that dream, And it's not until Sully comes in that it becomes that kind of like college frat movie.
Because before Sully gets even into the picture, the movie wants to paint us that there was this great friendship between Mike and Randall. Cause like, Mike gets into the dorms and he's like, I'm going to meet my new best friend. And if you're just going into this movie blind, okay, this is where he meets Sully. No, this is where he meets Randall.
The thing is that him and Randall get off immediately as best friends. Like, you could buy them, they could sell that whole relationship from that point on. The actors do really well with it.
Steve Buscemi playing a wide-eyed, bushy-tailed young man that becomes the smarmy jackass that Steve Buscemi plays in every movie.
Yeah, and I like the kind of nice guy Randy, like the nicer version of Randy before the movie kind of shows that what kind of corrupts him is hanging out with the cool kids, aka the frat bros that Nathan Fillion runs. And I really liked Randy's, kind of character arc through this, even though it's the exact opposite of Mike's almost, or the exact opposite of Sully's maybe.
Yeah, he starts as this, good kid, glasses, and then it's like him taking the glasses off, and that's why he sneers, because he's actually squinting because he's not wearing his glasses.
Yeah, do they not have contacts in the Monsters universe? Like, that would be really funny, because it's like they've got every kind of other thing, including the fact that throughout this entire movie, Mike is wearing a retainer. And I'm like, why would a monster fix their teeth? Wouldn't you want your teeth to be like scraggly and, like, wouldn't that add to your scariness if that's the kind of monster you want to be?
Yeah.
Because there's even one point in the movie where the professor says something about, like, come on, I want to see, big mouths full of yellow teeth or whatever, And I'm like, okay, but why is Mike wearing a retainer? Like, I know that in the human world, that's kind of our code for this character is younger, because you usually get, like, braces and retainers and stuff at a younger age, hopefully. But, like, that doesn't make sense in the Monsters universe. Because he even tries at one point, like, taking it out to see if that'll make him scarier.
But I just like that, Randy starts out as a good kid. He takes Mike's advice, and then he ends up hanging out with the cool kids. He gets into the frat house, and then he just becomes, I'm never losing to James Sullivan ever again, as long as I live. So it's like, it's a good kid becoming a villain, and he becomes, the Randall that we see at the beginning of the original movie.
But also, I like that the thing he hates Sully for is something that Sully didn't even know he did. Because he doesn't hate Sully because, like, spoiler alert, but, like, he doesn't hate Sully because, like, Sully's team beats his team. He hates Sully specifically because they go up against each other in that final match, and because Sully's roar is so loud, it shakes the platform, and it knocks him onto the floor and causes him to transform into a carpet full of hearts instead, and that, like, decreases his scare value. And when he comes back out, Nathan Fillion's like, hearts, dude, really? Like, you're not in the frat anymore, like, and that's the thing that makes him hate Sully specifically. And I'm like, Sully has this enemy that is wishing, like, absolute destruction upon him for the rest of his life, and he never even knows why. He's just like, yeah, that guy Randall at work is a real jerkwad, isn't he? Wonder why that is. Okay, do. It's like, and it's such a good, like, talk to your kids about that moment, because it's like, sometimes the things we hold on to, it's like that Mad Men bit of, like, I think every day about how to ruin your life. And it's like, really? I don't think about you at all. I have no idea who you are.
It's a nice, it's a thing that kind of resonates in real life, like, you can do something that, you're not even thinking about it, and you could just ruin someone's day, and that just spirals that person to depression or whatever. And then they hate you, but you didn't know what you were doing. You were just doing your normal thing, and you just happened to unfortunately ruin someone's life. It happens,
It happens so often that there's actually, like, a lot of psychological study about this. Like, they go back and they look at kids who were, like, bullies when they were kids, and the kids they bullied. And they'll ask people who were bullied a lot as children, like, okay, who were your biggest bullies? And they'll be like, oh, well, Bob Johnson really, bullied me all the time. And they'll go to Bob Johnson, they'll find him as an adult, and they'll be like, hey, do you remember, Joe Stewart or whoever they were just talking to? And they're like, oh, yeah, he was a little skinny kid. Yeah, we had a lot of classes together. Like, cool dude. And, like, they literally never remember being a bully because, it's it's that line from Street Fighter, It's like, well, for me, it was Tuesday, It's like, that was the thing, is, like, sometimes the things that, like, really derail your life are just like, well, that was just another day in my life, and I don't remember that. And so the thing that, like, absolutely derailed Randy's life was, it was just a normal thing for Sully because he doesn't remember it, because it wasn't anything done intentionally. It was an accident, and nobody knows why that happened. Randy just comes out covered in hearts, and people are like, hearts? Really? That was a choice,
Yeah.
So good lesson there. I like it. Good job, Pixar.
But it's like, the plot needs to happen here. As they're in their scare class, the dean says, yeah, there's a final coming up, and if you fail the final at the end of the first semester, you're out of the monster program. You're out of the scaring program. And this is where things really start to, and we're still, keep in mind that we're still in the first half hour of the movie, of this 2 hour. There's a lot that happens in this movie.
Yeah, they packed a lot of plot in this movie. I'll give them that.
Like 2 or 3 movies worth of plot is in this movie. They could have done an entire series based on Monsters University. But the point is that, as you said, Sully is brought into one of the fraternities, Roro Mega Roar, and because he's just a natural scarer. And Sully has to study and study hard, and he's getting good grades, and that, and their rivalry is just intensifying through this first half hour. And it comes to the finals of them having to actually scare. And as it goes on, Sully and Mike are just trying to one-up each other in their practice scares, and they end up getting kicked out of the program because in their competition with each other, they end up knocking over the dean's record-breaking screen canister. That's why, prior to being the dean at the school, she was the top scarer in the school's history with the largest scream of any one student.
Possibly in the entire, monster universe.
Until the end of the movie, but we'll get to that.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I'm just saying, not for any company or anything. I think just, on record of all time ever, yeah.
Yeah. So it's possible that she became a professional scarer afterwards and then at some point retired and became a teacher. So yeah, that's like her claim to fame is having the largest scream of any one monster in the school's history. And they just destroy the canister in their attempt to one up each other in trying to be scary. So now this is what half an hour into the movie, the actual plot of the movie happens.
Yeah.
Because this is a college movie, we need some sort of competition. And in this movie, it's the Scare Games, which also was founded by the dean when she was a student. So at some point, prior to being everything else, she was the original Greek chairman at Monsters University and founded the Scare Games to encourage competition between the students and the fraternities and the sororities at the school. And Mike makes a bet with the dean because it's a college movie. Of course, you're going to make a bet with the dean. And Mike says, if my team wins the Scare Games, you let me back into the Scare program. And the dean counters, fine. But if your team loses, you leave Monsters University. You drop out.
And she considers it such a impossibility for him to win that she's like, you know what? If you win, then I'll let your entire team back into the Scare program. And Sully hears that and hears that Mike needs one more person on his team to make the minimum number for the team. And Sully's like, okay, I'll be on the team. And Mike's like, do I have to?
We have 6 guys. No, you have 6 heads. That guy might have 2 heads, but he's one body.
I think that's an interesting rule for a monster college to have. Like, you might have 2 heads, but we count bodies.
So yeah, reluctantly, he lets Sully on his team as he joins the fraternity of Uzma Kappa. They're okay. I just want to go through the fraternities and sororities that they made up for this movie. Because we have Roro Mega Roar, ROR. We have Uzma Kappa, OK. Slugma Kappa, EEK. And Eta Hiss, HSS.
Yeah. And there's also the pink girls.
Python Nu Kappa, PNK.
Yeah, and all of them are pink.
Yeah. And this is where we start to see Mike become the Mike we see at the beginning of that first movie. Because he's now like, I know everything, everybody listen to me, everyone does exactly what I say, and will win. Mike has now gotten a little bit of a conceit about himself, very much in line with the characterization of Mike we see in that first movie.
And the thing is he's not wrong about the fact that he knows everything about scares and stuff. He's just wrong about one part of the whole process, you know?
Much to Sully's own dismay, because, again, Sully never had to practice being scary. He never had to study to be scary. He just was. So by following Mike's example, it's just boring the hell out of him. Like, can we just get on with this?
Yeah, he doesn't want to do the studying. He just like, and that was his problem in class too, was because the professor and the dean were trying to teach him like different types of scares, different ways to scare, you know, like maybe you sneak up on the kid first and then you scare him. Maybe you prolong the scare. Maybe you know, like learn what the kid is scared of and then use their own fears against them, you know. Sully just wanted to jump out and be giant and go rawr, you know, and because that had always worked for him. And yeah, in the first week of class, that shows promise. That shows like innate talent. But it's like if you come into an art class and you draw like a really good on model Homer Simpson, and then the next day your teacher's like, all right, now we're going to go into painting a bowl of fruit, and you turn in a really good Homer Simpson. It's like, well, okay, but there's more to art than being able to draw one character, you know? And so like if you just keep turning in that one drawing of Homer Simpson, you're going to fail the class, because that's not what the class is about. The class is to teach you all the different techniques of art and drawing, you know? So like Sully is that guy. He learned how to draw a really good Homer Simpson, and he just keeps turning that in every assignment. And eventually the professor's like, okay, that's great, but I have seen that 8 times now. That is not what the class is about. Stop doing that. And on the other hand, you've got Mike, who is the theory guy. He's read everything about it. He knows all the stats. He knows every technical thing. You know, he's a really good theoretical test taker. But when you put him in the wild, practically, you know, and it kind of comes down to it, you know, skipping ahead a little bit, because we're going to have to skip over a lot of the like nuance of this plot. Go watch the movie, seriously. But you know, kind of as they're getting further and further in this scare off there, and they're doing really well because Mike teaching them the theory, and each one member of the group learning to mesh it with their own particular skills, you know, like the older guy has suckers on his tentacles, and so he can climb up walls and stuff, and that turns out to be a really useful skill, you know? And the two-headed guy is really good at sleight of hand magic, so it turns out he's really good at misdirection and distracting somebody so that somebody else can sneak up behind him and get the scare. You know, and like it's a good partnership. And Mike helps them figure out all this stuff. He's a great coach for the team. But the problem is in the final task, each one of them is going to have to go in and prove how scary they are individually. And as the dean tells Sully, you know, that's going to be your Achilles heel there, bro, because Mike is just not scary. Like, look at the design of Mike. He's adorable.
Mike Wazowski! That's it! Children are not afraid of Mike Wazowski. Boo! A baby is not scared of Mike Wazowski.
Yeah, you could give a baby that plushie doll, and like they're not like maybe 1 out of 1,000 babies is crying at that and doesn't want to be around it. Every other baby is going to snuggle up to it. You know, it's really rare you're going to find the kid that finds Mike Wazowski scary. And you know, the thing about Sully is that he looks like a big snuggly teddy bear, and then he can be really scary and raw, you know. But there's nothing about Mike that is really scary unless you have a fear of just eyeballs, I guess. You know, like that might be the one weakness there.
If it can make its eyeball glow, he would be really scary in the dark.
Yeah, maybe because it would just look like a floating eyeball. Yeah. And the thing is that Sully has to agree. Like, Mike is brilliant. Mike knows everything about the art of the scare, but he's not inherently frightening. Like, if you came across him in a dark hallway, you wouldn't really be scared of him. And yeah, that's Sully has to agree. Like, it's just look at the dude. He's not scary, you know? Like, all of the other members of the team, they've discovered something about them that allows them to scare in certain situations, and Mike has never discovered that.
I like how you mentioned some of them. They're put up very early, and old Squishy is just creepy. Squishy is cute, and obviously Squishy and his mom, but Squishy can just stand there, and then you not know he's there. You bump into him, and he scares you.
Yeah, and also he's like a really fast mover. Cause like they show in like one of the scenes of like the camera pans across and you see Squishy, and then it like quickly cuts back like somebody darting their head back, and Squishy's just not there. And then like they move their head to the side and there's like Squishy standing next to them. And like, you don't have to look scary at that point. You can just be a normal human and that's terrifying, you know?
Put a bell on you.
Yeah, exactly. It's like your cat does that to you and you're like, nah, you know? I've had cats do that to me. I've had cats that were like that sneaky, and it's like, okay, stop. I'm literally just I'm putting an entire collar full of bells on you now. Every time you breathe, it's gonna jingle, okay?
Like the scare games are fun to talk about, but it's like it is. I don't want to skip through the scare games, but it's a lot. There's a lot of visual going on here, and it's hard to discuss that in an audio podcast. But they're really fun scenes.
I will say that one of my favorite things with the scare games, and the part where I'm like, Art, you and me, buddy, is the very first task in the scare games where they're like, we found these like glowy urchins. You don't want to touch them. And Art immediately goes, oh, I want to touch them. I want to touch them. And then they're like, oh, ready, set, go. And he's like, I'm going to touch them. And he just like dives fully into, like, that's me with like any animal that's like even partway cute. And it's like, this thing will rip your face off. I still want to pet it. No, they will rip your face off and use your guts as a necklace. I still want to pet it. Like, this thing can take down prey 15 times its size. I'm gonna snuggle the hell out of that.
I like how each part of the scare games plays into things that we learn in the first movie. Like, in their world, they believe children are toxic. So they have these little urchins that cause toxic reactions to the monsters. Okay, you have to be silent in order to sneak up on a child to scare him. So if you can get past the librarian, you're
50-foot tall tentacle librarian that like yeets you out of the library if you make a noise. I did like that bit.
I said quiet.
And I like that she never raises her voice. You know, she just like, I said quiet. And then she like throws the dude out the ceiling. Yeah. But I do like the library scene because it's the team realizing that they can win in a non-traditional way.
I do like that. It's like, is that legal? The only rule is to not get caught.
Yeah, it doesn't have to say that she doesn't have to perceive you or that she doesn't have to yell at you. She just can't grab you with a tentacle and throw you out the ceiling there. And it's like, well, okay.
This is the change up because it's listen to Mike, do whatever Mike says. And the only way they win is by not listening to Mike, is doing their own thing and taking their own strengths and making it work in that regard. Like, using the suckers, using the misdirection, using just general creepiness, and they're just grabbing the flag and they win. They move on,
The hide and seek one was really good because it played into each monster's unique ability to, hide, like, oh, if the parent comes in the room or if the child wakes up too soon and looks around the room, can you blend in with your surroundings or find a good hiding place? And so we see, like, Mike pretends to be a globe because he's round and mostly green, and like, it's like, okay, all right. And Sully pretends to be a bear rug, and the guy with the suckers on his tentacles, he sticks to the ceiling and they miss him that way, and it's really neat kind of stuff. I do, the only one that kind of doesn't play into that whole theme is the maze where you have to, like, scare the child and avoid the teenager. And I think that was just Pixar wanting to be like, yeah, our fans are getting kind of older now, so let's, like, rag on them a little bit.
What's next? Making a movie about iPads?
Yeah.
We'll get to it in a few weeks.
Anyway, but yeah, that was kind of the one that I was like, okay, this one isn't really as interesting, but they kind of zipped through that one. And then, of course, with the final test being the scare simulator that each one has to go through individually. It sounds like, well, you're rushing through the entire plot of the movie, because in a normal college movie like this would be the entire plot. Whether or not they win or lose the games would be the entire plot. But I like that this movie only makes it part of the plot.
Yeah. In a traditional college movie, whether it be a drama or a comedy, the finals of the competition is the ending of the movie. And it's not the ending of the movie here. We still have half an hour of movie left. Like, the first half is setting up the rivalry between Sully and Mike. And there is an hour of the scare games where Sully and Mike become the friends that they are in the other movie. But that final part, the scare simulator, where Sully insists Mike go last. And we already talked about it. The other monsters in Uzma Kappa use their own skills to get good screams. Good.
And I do wanna pause and reflect on this, because one of my other favorite scenes is that they break into the Monsters Inc. Kind of campus, I guess. I don't know, their kind of industrial park there, and they get up onto the roof. I like that Squishy's mom drives them, Sheila. I love Sheila. She's like the best character in this movie because she just becomes like the super fan over the course of the scare games. She like shows up in face paint and like all this kind of stuff. Like, it's so good.
I mean, there's an obvious joke. It's joke so obvious that both Disney and Illumination does it, of the seemingly innocent person that's a big fan of death metal.
Well, no, I thought that was just more like a monster joke. Like, what would the, like, cute little Midwestern moms be into in a monster world? Like, well, of course it would be death metal, it's like, but the thing that I like is that they are able to get themselves up on the roof and they're watching people out on the scare floor, and Mike is pointing out, like, oh, there's this really famous scarer and there's that really famous scarer, and him and Sully are bonding over, okay, well, I used to collect the rookie cards and all that kind of stuff. And but this is where Mike says, look at them, look at what they all have in common. And one of the other OK members says, I don't see anything that they have in common. And Mike's like, that's exactly the point. Each scarer has a unique talent that they lean into. And they talk about some of the ones that are, on the floor and what their unique talents are. And they are all like completely different monster designs. And you can kind of see like how each one of them would kind of fit into things that a little kid would be scared of, you know?
Like there's one that looks like a spider, and there's one that's a 3-headed bird, and one that looks like your unemployed uncle.
Yeah. And it's just, it's so interesting that he's like, that's what makes a good scarer, is to figure out like what your unique talent is and then use that to help you get scares. And I like that that was what Mike was really teaching them in that moment, that like other people may have overlooked your unique gifts, but that's what makes you the best person for the job sometimes. And I really liked that. It was a good scene and a good moment. And then it ends with like the security guard catching them and Art screaming, "I can't go back to jail!" And you're like, Art? What did you do, Art? Art, get back here.
But yeah, when you get, going back to the scare simulator, Sully insists that Mike go last. He started us, let him finish us. Finish us strong.
And everybody's down with that because it sounds reasonable. Like, yeah, Mike knows more than any of the rest of us. Like, he would be the strongest person on the team.
And it's the kind of moment that you see in all of these kind of movies, the main character getting the flashbacks to all these traumatic moments in their childhood. You can't do it. You'll never be one of us. You'll never be good enough. You've seen it 1,000 times in 1,000 movies.
And then Sully's voice, like, you gotta dig deep. Just find it within yourself. And you're like, okay, yeah, it's every sports movie montage, it's the underdog makes good.
Yeah. And then he deeps down and gets the biggest roar he can, and he gets the record-breaking scare. The OK win the scare games.
We're okay. We're okay.
And in any other college movie, this would be the end of the movie. But it's not. And when I first saw this movie for the first time, I'm thinking, oh, this is how the movie ends with, Mike gets the big scream. He wins for the team. And now we're going to get, oh, wait, there's more here.
Like, wait, how long have I been sitting here? Like, okay.
I mean, it's been 90 minutes. This is about the time for this kid's movie to wrap up. We're still going here. I'm in the theater. Like, oh, it's been about 90 minutes. We can wrap up now, and good feel-good ending, and then it keeps going.
Well, the thing here's the point in the movie where I was like, I don't remember Mike being that. It's been a few years since we watched it, and I've only watched it the once. But I was like, I don't really remember Mike being like. I remember Sully being like the big scare guy on the team, but I don't remember Mike really having that many scares in the movie. And so I had to like go to Wikipedia and look it up, and it was like the original movie was like, it's about Sully, top scarer, and Mike, his assistant. And I'm like, that's right, Mike wasn't even a scarer in that movie. And I was like, wait a minute. And then I realized, like, oh, the movie is still going. Because that was the thing that confused me, is like, you can't end up with the places that they're in at the beginning of Monsters, Inc. if this movie ends like all those other movies end. Mike's dream can't come true by default, and we get Monsters, Inc.,
Yeah. And then, we get to that aftermath of the after party where it's like, man, I can't believe it had it in me to do all that. Yeah, of course, Mike, you always had it in you. Just believe in yourself. Yeah. Sorry, kid. You're to be the first of many kids I scare. Boo. The scare simulator goes ballistic. Mike figures it out. That Sully tampered with the scare simulator to put it at a lower level because he knew Mike was going to be next. Sully cheated. So there? Sully cheated because, like you said, he agrees with the dean that Mike is not scary.
Yeah, and the thing is that Mike is absolutely devastated by this. He's like, you know what? I'm just gonna leave. You have fun going back to being a Sullivan and being the the golden kid and whatever, and I'm just gonna, forget you ever existed. Okay, bye. And then the team kind of sees them like talking and everything and figures out like, hey, what happened? And Sully comes clean with them, and they're like, okay, so we didn't win the cup. Like, this is meaningless to us. That's not how we wanted to win, and we're not gonna. And so they leave, and then it's just Sully standing there with the cup in his hands.
Yeah, and he confesses to the dean, I cheated. I tampered with the scare simulator. I cheated. I don't deserve this.
Yeah, I mean, the dean, to her credit, is like, I mean, that sucks, but it does seem like she's agreed to just punish Sully and not the rest of the team.
Yeah, she's already ready to expel Sully for tampering, for desecrating the scare games like that.
She has to admit that the rest of them did, and she did admit to Sully beforehand. She's like, you would have a really good team, except for Mike. Mike is just not scary. The rest of your team has come so far, and you're really good, and I would probably let you all into the scare department now, but Mike, And as she's standing there giving him his dressing down, an alarm starts to go off.
We skipped over this part because these monster colleges have shop class. And what do they make in shop class? Door.
I do like that the logistics of how they get and harness the scream energy and stuff like that is gone into in the world building a little bit. So we do see that there are different things like can designing and door designing, and there are all these other majors that you can go into. Yeah, the alarm is from the door lab where the students are preparing their final projects, basically.
They've been working all year on these doors that lead to the human world. And, Mike breaks into the door lab, steals one of the doors, and goes into the human world because he's going to prove that he can scare. He takes all of the knowledge that he's learned over this year, every trick, every trade, every bit of knowledge that he's learned about how to scare, and he is going to prove that he is scary by scaring these kids. And I say kids because that door leads to a summer camp.
Yeah, and it turns out that finally it looks like the reason that we get for why this one student was told their door had to be locked away is because, like, it's just too dangerous. Like, it's an entire summer camp dorm full of little girls. And so, like, that's, 20 kids to scare instead of just one. That's a lot for one monster, So it's too much risk for too little reward. And the professor, we had seen the scene earlier, the professor saying like, no, that door's too dangerous. We've got to close it down and everything. And the student saying, but I worked all year on that, So that's the one that Mike stumbles into. And he's like, all right, let me, he doesn't realize at first where he's at, but he just sees, he's like, I'm going to prove I can scare a kid in the real human world. And that'll get me into the program. That'll make them see that, that'll prove to myself and to them that, and he goes to scare the first kid, and the first kid's like, oh, you're cute. I want to touch you. And then other kids start waking up, and it's the same thing all the way through. He keeps trying to scare them, and the kids keep going like, oh, what is it? I want to snuggle it. Yeah. And then he runs into one kid who's like coming out of the bathroom, and he like roars at her, and she just roars back and then starts laughing, and Mike is just like, okay, screw it. They're right. I'm not scary at all to anyone. Not even to little human kids.
It's a heartbreaking moment, but it's like you said, we need these characters to be where they are at the beginning of the first movie. That is the problem with prequels, is that you can do all the character evolution you can in this movie, but at the end of this movie, they need to be the characters they are at the beginning of the original movie. So you kind of have to have Mike's spirit break. And that was that moment. All of his work, all of his studying, all of his training, and it literally shows that he cannot scare. But he's a hell of a coach. And Kiki, you were a teacher. And I mean no disrespect when I say this, but the phrase, if you can't do, teach, exists for a reason.
Yeah, and I was going to say, like, if this were like a sports movie, because a lot of it is structured like a sports movie, this as a sports movie would be like a guy who's always dreamed about being the quarterback, and he gets his time on the field finally at the big game, and he like tears a muscle in his knee, and they're like, you'll never play again. But then his teammates still want him around for the rest of the season, or the next season or whatever, and he discovers that he was an okay player, but he's a brilliant coach. And that's kind of what Mike did. This is kind of Mike's version of like, tearing a muscle on the field and finding out you'll never play again. Like, he gave it his best shot and he just couldn't make it on the field. But he discovered that, like, where he really does succeed is when Sully shows up to, quote unquote, rescue him. Sully kind of freaks out. Sully says, like, I know everybody sees me as scary, but I'm terrified all the time, which I think is a great line.
He has a lot to live up to. Making him a Nepo baby in the movie is a lot of pressure on him. He has to hold up his family name and live up to his family legacy of being scarers. That's a lot of pressure on someone, even someone who is as naturally gifted as Sully is at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, and I like that when, that Sully is very much like, I gotta go save Mike, but when he's actually through that door and actually in the human world and actually under pressure, he completely chokes. The dean depowers the door so that they can't get through. When they go, it's just like a normal like closet door or whatever again. And because she didn't want to risk any humans coming through that door.
Don't worry, that'll happen later.
Yeah, but I mean, given what we saw happen in the original movie, we understand her fear of that and why she would do that, even though there are people there begging her, like, there are two monsters on the other side of that door. You can't just leave them there.
Either leave them there or risk the exposure of the monster world to the human world.
Yeah. Without that portal there, it's like, well, this is a fluke, even if they catch them. But if that door is still active, they could discover, like, oh, there's a portal to another world here, and oops, then we're toast, But when, Sully is completely ready to give up the second they realize that the door has been depowered. And Mike, bless him, is just like, no, I read about this in theory once, that the door could be powered from either side. We just have to come up with enough scream energy to power the door from this side. Like, the door still exists. We just have to power it from this side instead of the other side. And Sully's like, that can't work. He's like, yes, it does. I know all the theory behind it, but you got to help me get the scare. And he's like, I'm just one monster. I can't scare. And he's like, yes, you can if I'm coaching you through it.
And especially, these are adults. We're trying to scare children. I don't know how to scare an adult.
Yeah, we kind of skipped over that, but like, all the children have been evacuated because when Sully burst through, all the adults saw was fur coming through, and they thought a bear was in the area, so they've evacuated the children, and they've sent in park rangers to take down what they think is a bear that got into the cabin. And so they're there and they're armed, to take down, to trank a bear. It would definitely take out Sully if he wasn't smart about it. If he just jumped out and did his usual, like, roar, well, he'd get a trank dart in him and that would be the end of Sully, like, um, he'd go off to some government facility and be looked after by top men. But he has Mike with him, fortunately, and Mike is able to, in a really brilliantly done scene.
Right out of a horror movie, man.
Oh, it is so good. Like, if I was a little kid, that scene itself would have probably scared me. Like, just watching that scene, because I was like, you know me, I love horror movies, and I'm like, man, they have pulled out every horror trope of a
It's a
cabin in the
summer
woods.
camp.
Yeah, it's a summer camp. It's a cabin in the woods setting. It's in the middle of the night. It's like, oh, so good.
The camera work on this scene is so good because you just see Sully run across the screen in black and shadow, and then you just see the scratches just appear on the wall.
Yeah, and you see, like, Mike moving around in the shadows to do things like open windows so that, like, a breeze can go in and blow the curtains through to scare them. And then, like, he winds up a doll and sends it, like, and so then this doll just, like, comes through going like, "Mama!" And I'm like, okay, that would've gotten me. And
They're flipping over, and we see that it's Mike using fishing wire to trip the beds up.
yeah, and him reaching down and starting the record player when they're not looking, but the record player is set on an RPM that's too low. So it's like this really low powered, like, it's like, I really liked that because, like, it's every trope of a horror movie done all at once to these like 6 park rangers or whatever. Oh, man.
And I love how you start seeing the door glow. Like it's flickering. It's like, it's working. We just need one big scare to give it enough juice that we can just keep it open long enough to get through.
Holy gosh. Yeah, and then Mike sets up a whole bunch of fishing line behind the park rangers as they're, like, trying to back out the door, and they all trip over the fishing line. And then Sully jumps out for the big scare, and they just absolutely lose their minds.
We have a new champion.
And not only does he power the door, he powers every can that's on the shelves in that workroom, and, like, then some. All hell is breaking loose on the monster side of that door. And
So much scream energy that the door explodes.
yeah, but not before Mike and Sully are able to just get through.
Like that entire scene. Like I said, if this is the closest we'll get to a Disney kids horror movie, is that one scene. And like you said, they put every single horror movie trope in that one scene, and it's amazing. The fact that this went from a college campus comedy to summer camp horror movie.
Yeah, and for just like one scene, and then it's back. Because, the second they get back on the monster side of the door, the dean is like, how did you do that? How did you do that? And then, like, everybody else is like, yeah, Mike and Sully are still alive. Woohoo,
You're
and then
both expelled.
Yeah, it kind of moves on. But yeah, Mike and Sully both get expelled from university. And they're
And yeah, and I like that, we get that one little cameo of Roz. Like I said, it's like, we're going to be watching these two. Always watching. It's kind of like, we find out at the end of the original movie that Roz was a lot higher level at Monsters, Inc. than we were led on in the beginning of that first movie. So to have her there in that suit where, you don't see her, but you hear the voice and it's Roz. She's been watching these two all of these years, seeing the potential in these two.
Yeah. The thing is that you're like, okay, well, if they've been expelled from college, how do they end up, like I said, you got to get them to where they're at in the first movie. You can tell this is a movie from a different time because this would never work now. I was sitting there thinking that watching this movie, I'm like,
this is an almost 15-year-old movie.
I'm like, this would have barely worked when this movie came out. This definitely wouldn't work anymore now. But, you know, it's boomers remembering their childhood. And apparently in the monster world, you can still work your way up from the mailroom. So that's what they decide to do. They get a job in the mailroom of Monsters, Inc., and they work their way up to janitors and then to the cafeteria people and then, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And we see all of that in a montage in Mike's locker, you know, which was a really cute thing.
I do like, you know, again, we get the cameo of Ratzenberger as the Yeti, and it says it's a criminal offense to tamper with the mail. You know, banishment could come to you. It's like, oh, so that's how the Yeti got banished.
Yeah, maybe. So they work their way up, and finally we see them where open tryouts for company employees, you know, come give us your best scare, show us what you can do. And apparently Mike coaches Sully to, you know, be the best one there or whatever.
Yep, and the movie ends with Mike and Sully walking on the scare floor for the first time. First day on the job, and yeah, they are, like I said, this movie has to end with them being where they are at the beginning of the movie, and that's where they are. So for someone who was watching this movie for the first time, what did you think of it?
Enjoyed it more than I expected to enjoy it. Monsters, Inc. is a cute movie. It's still not going to go down as my favorite Pixar movie. And so this is still in the realm of it's a cute movie that's never going to go down as my favorite Pixar movie. But I will say that for a movie that incorporates one of my least favorite film types ever for a good chunk of the movie, I really found myself enjoying this quite a bit. A lot of the side characters are great. I loved Art. I loved Sheila. You know.
Mm-hmm.
But
poor Squishy, as Don is now going to be his stepfather.
Yeah, his sorority brother ends up marrying his mom. That's like a creepy little ending there. Like, just think of us as brothers. Your brother who married your mom. No, wait, that's weird. Let me try that again. No, we're brothers who have the same mom and then married her. No, wait, that's even worse. But yeah, I just like that there's kind of a good ending for pretty much everybody, like you expect in a Pixar movie, you know? Even the villains in this got a good ending because we see in the credits that Nathan Fillion's character goes on to be a scarer at one of the companies. You know, I mean, Helen Mirren's Dean wasn't really like a horrible character, you know, as far as like evil that had to be taken down. It was just, you know, she was a barrier in the two main characters' dream, you know? And all, but like, you know, everybody seems to be in a good place kind of at the end of the movie, and then we get the two characters back to basically where we found them at the start of the first movie.
And, you know, we do get post-credit scene. We skipped over him because it's a gag. But at the beginning of the movie, there's a slug character who wants to be on time for the first day of school, and the post-credit scene is the school year is over, and he finally makes it to class because he's a slug.
Yeah.
So, Kiki, does Monsters University have the magic?
I would actually say yeah.
I definitely would say yeah. This was not the sequel. Again, when this movie came out, was not the sequel that I kind of wanted from Monsters Inc. movie, but it's a really great movie. Like I said, it does kind of fall into the prequel problem where you need to have these characters be where they were at in that original movie by the end of this movie. But it's a great origin story. This is the Mike Wazowski movie. If your favorite character from the original movie is Mike Wazowski, this is the movie to watch.
Yeah, I mean, and also, uh, I think I've said it before, but I do think Disney needs to do more like, well, kid, your dream didn't come true. Suck it up anyway.
Yeah.
And this is kind of that movie. It's kind of like, well, you couldn't be the quarterback, but maybe you can be a coach of a winning team one day. So,
Yeah.
this is kind of like the Susie Izzard movie of the like, oh, you want to be a scarer? Well, you're Mike Wazowski, so tone it down a bit.
I think that's all we can say about Monsters University, I mean, they do sell the Monsters University hats at the park still. And I believe they do sell the Uzma Kappa hats at the parks. None of the other sororities or fraternities have merch as far as I'm aware. Even though it is a sorority, I would buy a Slugma Kappa hat just because it says Eek on it.
Yeah, I was thinking, I was like, that would definitely be the one that I would buy if they were all out there. But the thing is, it's like, don't join Greek organizations, kids. They come from a bad place, and maybe don't.
But yeah, so as for next week, Kiki, as of this release, the new Spider Noir show should be starting on Amazon with Nicolas Cage reprising his role as Spider-Man Noir from the Spider-Verse movies. But this is not the first time Nicolas Cage has played a superhero. Definitely not the first time he's ever played a Marvel superhero. So, Kiki, are you ready to go back one more time into the world of the pre-MCU Marvel movies?
For Nicolas Cage, I suppose I can make the sacrifice.
Let's ride, Kiki, because we're going with Ghost Rider. Put your, the certain song. Yes, it's in the movie. We know where we'll talk about
Yeah,
it next week.
we're not gonna use it because copyright.
Yeah. So come back next week for Nicolas Cage in Ghost Rider, and we will talk to you all next time. Bye.
Hey,
Don't let the magic stop here.
keep the conversation going. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Rewatching the Magic.
We are also on Blue Sky, rewatchingthemagic.bsky.social. And new episodes are available at rewatchingthemagic.podbean.com and youtube.com/@rewatchingthemagic. Remember, the magic is for everyone.
It only stops if you let it.
We know that right now, things are tough.
But in the words of Jim Henson, the only way the magic works is by hard work. But hard work can be fun.
Check out our show notes for ways that you can help.